The bass and the tweeters make the speakers go to war. The mighty trumpet brings the freaks out to the floor. The bass and the tweeters make the speakers go to war. The mighty trumpet brings the freaks out to the floor.
Well, happy Monday morning, everybody. This is a special episode, a special what are we? Developer minute. I'm joined by Sarah. It's Monday morning. We haven't had our coffee yet. Maybe Sarah has, but I definitely have not.
I had some orange juice.
She had some orange juice, but we're trying to figure this out. So just to give a quick background, we record our podcast on Fridays, and then we're all lazy and don't clean up the podcast equipment until Monday morning. So I said, why not come in a bit early and knock out a 15 to 20, maybe 30-minute long quick hot take podcast, just with stuff going on in the industry, or we can debate things like we're going to do today, or just talk about new ways to do things, or just anything related to what we're going to do. We're probably most likely not going to have the entire team on like we usually do for our podcast. Like I said, it's just Sarah and I. So today, so we're going to come up with an official name for it. But today we're gonna talk about something easy, just because we just kind of figured out the topic this morning, and so we're gonna talk about WordPress today. We're gonna talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the pros and cons. So the sides of the debate basically go as follows: I love it, and Sarah despises it on a very high level.
Those are some strong words there.
Well, I mean, be honest with the people. And I think Emily Bayer just walked in, so she might be joining us. We'll see. So we're going to talk about WordPress for a little bit. But before we do, we're going to play. Let me pull up my. Hold on, I had music and everything, but I forgot to pull it up. Games. We're gonna play a game, and we have game show music. Dun dun dun. Hey, welcome to the official podcast game show. This is it. This is all it is. It's just on loop. Okay, Sarah, you are on the game show, and if you get these questions right, you win a fabulous prize. We don't know what that is yet, but how many websites are there on the internet? According to a survey published by Netcraft, you probably have no idea, because neither did I. I'll give you a hint.
We're not talking about like darknet stuff, are we?
I don't know. I'll give you a hint that it's in the 9 digits.
9 digits.
And if you can get it within the 100th of a million, I'll give it to you.
Okay, so I'm trying to do math in my head. 9 digits. Wow. I'm gonna say like 150 million. Oof. That's 9 digits.
So
right?
close. Yeah. So according to them, it's 172. 172 million websites. And so then the next question is, how many of those websites do you think are WordPress?
I believe the number's like 70%.
Well, okay. I'm not doing the math on. I'm not doing the math on that one.
Out of 172, that's gonna be like over 90 million.
Ooh. Okay, maybe they're wrong. This thing here is saying, this is actually...
Well, I think WordPress claims that they power 70% of the website, of the web.
Okay. Well, this is actually a 2018 article. This says that 75 million of those... 75? Yeah, are WordPress. And then, so question number 3, you're 0 for 3 now, is how many of those 75 million are being hosted on WordPress.com?
Oh, that I don't know.
Okay. Well, me neither. I wouldn't have guessed any of these numbers myself. That is about half at 37,500,000. So we got about 75 million WordPress sites out there. I mean, give or take a couple mil, but so it's definitely a huge
Now,
platform.
how many of those are up to date?
Well, that's probably what we're gonna end up talking about. So I think the reason, well, one is I'm just comfortable with it. It's what I learned. It's what I grew up on, professionally and out of the profession, and even though that they're frowned upon, I feel like there are a lot of not a lot, but there is a handful of solid plugins that we can use for the WordPress, and that we utilize on a daily basis. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't until I started that we really kind of hammered down on WordPress at Pixel and Hammer.
Well, before I started, I don't think they ever did.
Mm-hmm.
We ever did WordPress. And I think it was just because the developers before us really, really disliked WordPress.
Yeah, I know Dan did.
I also professionally sort of grew up on WordPress, and
Right.
that's how I was trained. Before I started here, I really hadn't touched a whole lot of other
Yeah.
kind of softwares.
Yeah.
Maybe I worked on WordPress and Magento. That was
right, and
that was
that's-
most of my
and,
experience.
And I think, which was how, like, what year was that? Like, how long ago?
How long ago did I start on WordPress?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 years ago.
Right. So, and I mean, back then, that was like, we'll say that was like 2012, 2013. I'm trying to figure out, and I don't 100% know. I know there were a few options, but as far as like the whole build your own drag and drop Squarespaces of the world, I don't think that was huge back then. I know there
Wix
was. I know there was Wix because I used it, and I'm sure there were other like.
I think it was just maybe like
Just
Wix and Weebly.
website Weebly, yep. So there were those, but they weren't fantastic, right?
No.
They weren't industry leading. They weren't what Squarespace is today.
And I'm pretty sure WordPress predates both of them.
Right, exactly. So it's very interesting to see where it's come, and I believe you said so. They just hit their 15-year birthday. WordPress, 15 years old, so that means they came out in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
and I mean, that's what is that? That's like, internet was only a thing until like, when did the internet come out?
You're
like-
revealing us to be millennials.
I
here.
know, I don't.
I think it
Heard like
was like
Late
late 80s.
oh,
Late 80s.
late 80s.
early
Was it
90s,
late
I
80s?
believe. I mean, it may have not been
Cool.
worldwide.
right.
I
When
mean, my computer
internet start?
remembrance starts with like a Windows 95. So.
Oh no, you're right. January 1st, 1983.
Oh, okay. So that's earlier than I thought it was too.
Recognizable 1990. Right. So even if that was the case, I don't think people had it because, I mean, Windows 95 was like the main forerunner for the internet and AOL dial-up and all that stuff. So we're probably saying popularity only became until 1995. So we're looking at only 8 years later that WordPress became a thing.
Hmm.
I would love, it'd be cool if we could like develop, if we could get a copy of WordPress 1 and like just set up a dev server and like make a WordPress site using that to see like
boy.
try to find documentation, see what like all the PHP snippets
I'm
and
sure
the
we could find a
codes
repo of it somewhere.
and that'd
Probably
be cool.
really, really insecure.
Well, for sure. I mean, that wouldn't be our number one priority, but that'd be cool. I don't know, just like I know Alex loves playing around with like weird OSs and all that stuff. So that'd be neat. Maybe we'll look into that. So you brought up security. Now, WordPress is number one in internet security. They've never been hacked. They've never had any data leaks, and your content is secure on any WordPress site.
And Levi has never told a lie.
So, all right, it's honesty hour now. I have never, and I know you have, but I have never had one of my WordPress sites hacked into. Now, could that just be because I am an amazing developer and I know what I'm doing? And no, but I think all of my WordPress sites are usually always up to date, right? So there's all of them are set to automatically update on minor versions. And then major versions, I'm usually logging into them once every 6 months to a year, and then I just update. And I can do that because we don't use themes built by other people. And I think that's the major problem that people run into, is they buy these themes or they set up these themes or they get them for free somewhere. And they're the free versions of themes, which aren't being updated. So if you're not paying for them, the developers are just putting them out there. So hopefully you buy the one that comes with all the updates and the code things. And most of the themes that even some of our clients and the most people out there, they're not using 90% of the features of the themes anyways, right? So like they have all these different plugins that they need to install to run these themes. And then it's like you can't delete them. And then if those developers don't update them, then your theme breaks. Then functionality goes away that you are using. And it's just this constant, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think probably the first issue with WordPress is you have to keep it up to date if you want it to stay secure. And I'm not sure if that's just a feature or result of constant development.
Yeah.
Although I don't have, I mean, all software has that to some extent, that you have to update it in order to keep it secure.
Right.
That's why you always have Mac updates and Windows updates and all this annoying stuff. But at the same time, if they make updates that break your stuff, it becomes a problem.
Right.
Or if you're using a plugin from a developer that decides they don't want to be a developer anymore, they want to climb mountains for a living, then
you should.
You've got a problem.
Shit out of luck. Yeah, which our best practice, which has always been my best practice. And I'll admit, sometimes I get lazy and download a plugin or two that I could have just developed into the theme or whatever, you know what I mean? But best practice is that you, at least from a developer standpoint, I think maybe once or twice, because I had to or because whoever was running the project promised the client something, I've never like installed a slider plugin. I've never installed like a drag and drop thing. It's always been custom developed. Like if you can develop it within the files, within a normal HTML site, you shouldn't have to download a plugin for it.
Right.
And I think that's another part of just why maybe it's been so successful, at least in my career. And I know, so I know, for example, so you tried, and we won't mention names, but we had this debate, Sarah and I, a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, just WordPress versus a couple other CMSs that we use here in-house. And so you actually hacked one of our WordPress sites.
Yes.
So what did you do?
It took me probably about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I basically just set up a script that entered in the 1,000 most popular passwords using an XML RPC runner. And it basically just submits it to that page. And because of the way it was set up, because it's also slightly out of date WordPress, there's no like locking you out for 5 minutes if you get one wrong. And it just so happened that one of the admin accounts on the WordPress had a very common password. I think it was password. So within about 3 seconds, the script got access to the admin account. And that was just to basically illustrate the first issue of not having a secure password.
So what did this, and it just, did your like screen just refresh and you were logged in? Or
no, so the script came back and told me what the username and password
they just
was.
gave you a success one, and then okay.
Yeah, so then I could log in, and depending on how locked down the WordPress is, if you have file access, then you can compromise pretty much whatever you want at that point.
So interesting. So that's but see, that should just be, I think that just needs to be common sense across the board.
Yeah, that
If
wasn't
you're-
like the vulnerability with WordPress was the XML-RPC page.
Right.
That was the issue
Right.
of like it just letting me try password after password after password. Now it was the admin's issue that they had a weak
Mhm.
password to begin with. But
So, and I think another thing that we've learned from that and that we've kind of implemented is we're using security plugins now. I know it's a plugin, but it is nonetheless a trusted plugin, at least.
that being said, though,
What happened?
the hack we had last week on an insecure WordPress that we host had a script in it specifically to turn off that particular plugin if it was installed and on.
Right. Well, okay. So how often would that happen, though? Is that, I'm sure have you seen that before? Or?
I haven't seen that particular one before.
Yeah.
But it's kind of,
Yeah.
it was
crazy.
a little jarring when you're seeing
Right.
these things be like, oh, if they have, the security plugin
Right.
installed, uninstall it.
So minus that person or that hack or that script. So what we're doing now is, or at least me, for my WordPress installs, I am setting up a flag for even if anybody tries to log in with like the username admin or admin 1 or 2 or whatever like the top 20 common admin usernames are, it immediately kicks them out. Doesn't matter. They don't even get to put in a password. So if they use admin as their username, they're gone.
Right.
So, which is then, just requires us to give the our users or the admin or the administrators of the sites better passwords or better usernames and passwords, which is always a good thing as well.
So my biggest gripe with WordPress isn't so much with the software. Well, it is with the software itself. So the idea behind WordPress is that they wanted to give everybody a voice. So they created this blogging platform for that can be used by anybody. But if you compare it to some of the other CMSs that we use, in order to get the same functionality in these other CMSs or in WordPress that we have in these other CMSs, we have to install like 10 plugins.
Right.
So we're dealing with software from 10 different companies versus just dealing with software from one company.
Right.
And that's where it can be a little headachy as far as, if any one of those companies decides they're done or they don't update something or they introduce a vulnerability, you're dealing with a lot more logistics there.
Yeah. And I think unfortunately that's is it safe to say that that's just kind of, unless somebody has people like you and me to build a contact form or an SEO solution for every page or post or what have you, or something that allows the user to have custom fields in the back end or whatever it may be, or just the back end in general, it isn't that kind of the way the internet kind of works these days when it comes to building websites. Like, so, for example, like, is there a difference, and I'm sure there is, and I don't know, but is there a difference between like the WordPress plugins we use and the recently released like Statamic plugins? Like, would that not have the same problem as far as like, what if the developer abandons ship? Now you have an issue. I know.
Well, yeah, you still have the same problem, but like the new Statamic plugin is done by the Statamic guys.
All of them?
Huh? They were the ones who released the new SEO plugin.
Right.
So not all their plugins are done by that, but we need less plugins if we're doing a Statamic site or a craft site than we do with a WordPress site.
Right.
Because with a WordPress, we need, the security plugin, we need the ACF, we need the form plugin, we need
True.
the Yoast plugin. With Statamic, we need the SEO plugin, and forms are already built in.
Right.
And it does all the stuff that ACF does automatically. So it's less plugins for the same functionality that we use
Why do you think that WordPress hasn't adopted this model that CMSs like Statamic or Craft have?
Well, I think they have a problem because they want to be, to some extent, like backwards compatible, or they don't want to change everything up and pull the rug out from under people who've been using
Sure.
WordPress forever.
But I think maybe they wouldn't have to do that. I think it would just be smart because, I mean, they're huge, right? They have employees.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a multi-billion-dollar company, maybe just millions, whatever. So how hard would it be to continue doing what they're doing, have the WordPress, the downloads, the plugins, everything they have, but have a team of 5 guys to create, like, I don't know, WebPress or whatever they want to call it. Call it something new, but it's a WordPress product and it's just a file-based CMS or something more secure or something where it's like forms are built in, custom fields are built in, field sets, blah, 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 that doesn't require these plugins, that doesn't require this extra functionality. Like, I'm curious as to why they haven't, especially with just the way of, like, Statamic's constantly growing. So is Craft. I mean, I haven't heard of them since I started working here, but now that I have, I mean, it's obviously a huge community. Laravel's getting bigger, and the plugin industry, I think, is people are slowly seeing that it's not all that it's cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I even had a girl who I knew from friends long ago, and she set up a WordPress blog through her Bluehost account, which I told her was trash. Bluehost gets hacked every 5 minutes. And she's like, every time I go to my site, it reloads to this Amazon prize wheel spinny spam thing.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, show me the plugins you have. And she's like, these are it. And I'm like, well, get rid of this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Update your WordPress. Where's your theme from? She's like, I don't know. It was from some free theme. And I'm like, there's your problem. There's 100% of your problems. So, and I also think it's maybe not. So 2 things can happen. So we have WordPress that creates something like Statamic or a file-based structure or something that's better, right? Or we need someone like Statamic to be that one-click install for server guy. Because, I mean, that's like that's where the 35 million sites come into play, because somebody just gets a hosting plan, they click, oh, install WordPress, and now they have it.
Well,
and they know nothing about it.
I think that's like the fundamental difference between a site or a software like Statamic versus a software like WordPress, because Statamic's their end user is the developer,
right?
Not the layman.
True.
Whereas WordPress's end user is the person who wants to build their own website. And we just sort of have picked this up because everybody is requesting WordPress and everybody knows WordPress, and so that's what they feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily developer oriented. Right. So then we deal with all the pain points of dealing with a software that's not developer oriented.
So I think maybe then that's just, I think that's what should happen. I think WordPress needs to just like buckle down, get 10 people on a team and make something that is developer side. You know what I mean? Because we'd use it. We'd pay for it. I mean, we pay for Statamic, we pay for Expression Engine, we pay for all these other things. So it's not like money is an option. It's not like, we're using WordPress because it's free, but we're using it for its features. But if they were like, hey, we have this new thing, it's super secure, it's all file-based, you don't need plugins, like, we'd jump on it in a heartbeat.
We have that already, though.
Well, yes, I know. But I mean, we're always trying new things. But if it was out there and they were like, it's everything you love about WordPress, but we did this, 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 and that, could be the ultimate CMS. We might just drop everything else and use that instead. Probably not. All right. So wrapping up, look, WordPress is open source. It's free for anybody to use. There are vulnerabilities with plugins. There are vulnerabilities with WordPress itself. If you have a WordPress site and it is not up to date, do that immediately. But check with the theme or the developer of said theme or the developer of the site itself if you had somebody else do it before updating, just so your site doesn't break. Check your plugins. If you're using things that are unnecessary, like Facebook Hero Image Fixer Resizer, like, you don't need that. It should be already set up. And if it's not, contact somebody like Pixel and Hammer. Like, you could go to pixelandhammer.com, fill out a contact form, and we could help you with that. And
if you're doing the website DIY stuff,
yep.
Maybe don't go with WordPress just because of all the security issues. Because
Absolutely.
if you go with something like Squarespace, Wix, or Weebly, or it's something in that realm of these website builders that are drag and drop, they're dealing with the security of it.
For sure.
So you don't have to worry about it at all, and you don't have to deal with it then when your website gets hacked.
If anything, and I'm saying this lightly, if anything, if you had to choose between WordPress and Squarespace, if you're doing it on your own, if you don't have the budget to hire somebody like Pixel and Hammer or another firm like us, you for sure go Squarespace. We're not fans of it here just because it takes some of our jobs away, or most of some projects, or we lose some customers to it because it is that free or cheaper option for a lot of people who are just starting out. WordPress, the good, the bad, the ugly. This has been a hot take. It's been a hot minute. It's been a hot developer minute. We're going to come up with a name for next time. Let's go have a great
That's our
Monday.
goal for the week.
Yeah. All right, Sarah.
Happy Monday.
Yes. I was going to say goodnight to the people, but it's
Monday morning.
It's Monday morning. We're going to go get coffee. And we're gonna have a good week. I don't know if we'll be back on Friday, but the next episode of the Agency Hour podcast will be up shortly. So go check that out. Have a good week, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Tell me where the freaks at.